I am very, very excited to dive into today's session with Debbie. She's going to talk to us about how we can be more comfortable with negotiation. I don't know if you guys have heard, but there's been several changes in the industry when it comes to compensation and buyers. And now we have to get that buyer agreement signed. And how do we negotiate? How do we negotiate in a transaction? This can apply in so many different ways in our life, but especially in this business. And there's one thing that I have found in most of the agents that I've talked to over the last several years is getting better at negotiating. How? Getting comfortable with it, right? It's almost an uncomfortable feeling. And, you know, being able to convey that message and convince, not really convince, but make the other person feel comfortable to make that decision that you know that they need to make, which Debbie's going to dive into, is so critical. And a lot of times, us as humans, we just don't like we don't like confrontation, right? And we kind of feel like negotiations can be confrontational, but they absolutely don't have to be. So this is the time to get better in your negotiation skills. And I'm confident after you leave today, Debbie is going to leave us with some gold and things that we can implement into our business right away. So, Debbie, can you hear us?
I can. Thank you, Justin, and thank you for having me back. Good to
Of
see you
course.
all.
Good to see you. Thank you.
You know, it's funny. I was at the California Association of Realtors event last week, and they asked me to speak on this topic. And I said to them, wow, here we are. It's, we made it through August 17th, and we're all still standing and doing just fine. And
Survived.
it reminded me a little bit of Y2K, right? We all thought the world might end, and then it didn't. I don't know if some of you were in the business in like 1993, 1995. If so, you probably remember, I think it was right around that time period when the internet first opened up for buyers and sellers to be able to go in and do their own searches. And what was interesting is it was something like only 10 or 15% even utilized that. And it took quite a number of years before it went to 50%. And then we look at it now and it's probably 90+%. But here's what's funny. At that time, they told us within 5 years, real estate agents would be extinct because they would go on and search. So technically, since about 2000, we would all be gone, right? There would be no agents, but it didn't happen. And why did it not happen? Because they need you. Just like today, so some of the rules around real estate have changed, but that doesn't diminish the fact that your job as a great salesperson, it's never to push them into doing things they don't want to do. Because even your mom who loves you is not going to buy a house from you if she doesn't want to buy a house. But instead, I think of it as helping them overcome their fear and hesitation to get to the other side to achieve that goal that they have set. So when we think about negotiations, Justin, you really set it up perfectly, because sometimes that conjures up these bad feelings of like these old-fashioned scripts that were so gimmicky and salesy, which, by the way, today's savvy consumer, they're not going to put up with that, right? That's not going to work. Or being pushy and aggressive, which really great negotiators are not pushy and aggressive. So we'll go through some great ideas today that I think will make you guys excited to skill up in terms of your negotiations. And here's why this is so important, because now we aren't just negotiating with the seller to take the listing, to get the commission you deserve, to get the deal together. Now we've got to negotiate to get a buyer to agree to potentially pay your fee if the seller's not willing to give concessions. There's going to be a lot more back and forth in the weeds of all of that than have ever happened in our industry. And just being blunt, some of you have never learned to actually negotiate because you didn't have to. See, you got into the business at a time where listings were selling like that, and buyers would do anything to get that house. Sure, you had to make a deal, but it wasn't tough negotiations, right? And some of us, it's been a minute, and so we might be a little bit rusty, right? So it's a good time to get a refresher. You know, I started when I was 18 in LA Orange County selling real estate, sold for 16 years. And then the last 22 years, actually, probably I need to change that. It's probably more like 24, have coached some of the most amazing all across the country. I love salespeople and I love selling. So I found this quote: there is no more fascinating business in the world than that of selling, because without salespeople, there would be little progress made. See, a few of you with us, you might actually have a little baggage around being a salesperson. Like it's, I don't know, is it tacky to sell? And I don't feel great about it when I'm promoting myself. You know what? Remember, you help people achieve the American dream. You change people's lives by building their wealth when you help them own real estate. So what you do matters, right? And I think you got to really watch that mindset and come from that place of, okay, it's not about my commission. Of course I want to get paid. But if I can help them achieve their goal and I can reduce the stress because my skill as a negotiator is high, my customers will be happier. So I want you to think about real quick, and you can type it in the chat box if you want, but you don't have to, just kind of for your thoughts. On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rank your skill as a negotiator? And I want you to think about things like this. You know, if you're not sure, well, am I a 10, or where do I get stuck? Do I get too emotional? And sometimes emotion is stress. Sometimes though, it's drama in a different way. Like, oh my gosh, we have to hurry up. This house is so amazing. But they're already freaked out, so we stress them out. Am I too argumentative? You know, it's a false belief that in order to be a good negotiator, you have to be an aggressive hammer. That's false. That's not true. Awesome negotiators. One of my favorite gurus I study, Chris Voss, from the book Never Split the Difference. He was an FBI hostage negotiator turned Harvard Business School negotiation instructor. And he says, absolutely, that is not the way to negotiate. He said if he had negotiated in that fashion, lots of people would have died. So we don't want to kill our negotiation by being too argumentative with the other side. Too focused on our own agenda, obviously focusing on commission versus outcome. A big one is often lack of preparation. When you think about how hard you all work to get that great lead and to get them to that line of getting into that negotiation, but then you fail to prepare well, and then it falls apart. And when I think of preparation, knowing the other side, what are their goals and motivations, who's the agent on the other side, you know, what do I need to gather from my prospect to present our best case? What am I going to do to wow this seller and this agent that we're the one they should work with? And then possibly your communication skills could use a little bit of improvement. Or maybe you give up too easily. Well, I don't know, I need to think about it. Okay, great. You know, call me when you're ready. Instead of saying, sure, you know what, Justin, I can appreciate that you want to think about it. I understand. It's a big decision. Tell me, what's most concerning? Let's just talk it through together. See, I don't have to say, oh, but you're going to lose it, and now's the time to buy, all those salesy things. I just need to engage in that conversation with him. I need to dig into motivation. I need to know what are their interests, what are their concerns, because that's a lot more powerful than a stated position, right? So let me give you an example. Let's say that I met with Jill and we listed her home. And at that time, I really asked a lot of questions about why she was moving. And, oh, I have my mother is alone and she's aging and I need to be near her. And this is why I'm moving and I have a job opportunity. And I hear all of that. But now, let's say Jill's house is not selling. And I'm asking Jill to adjust the price. And Jill says something that we've all heard sellers say before. I don't have to sell. But Debbie, I don't have to sell. Guess what, guys? That's a stated position. The real deal is that underlying motivation that got her to call me in the first place, got her to prepare and stage the home. She's been working with me to sell that home. And if she didn't want to sell it, why would she have done all that? So I kind of, in a way, just need to ignore that stated position and go back to motivation, right? And then likability. And sometimes we mistake having rapport, establishing rapport, for establishing a commonality. So, an example, let's say I went to Dee's house to list it. And I said, oh, Dee, I see you have all these cookbooks. I love to cook. Oh, and I see you have Ina Garten. She's amazing. Actually, I made this recipe from that book last week and my family loved it, blah, 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 blah. What am I doing? I think I'm establishing rapport. Really, I'm just trying to establish a commonality. And when Dee doesn't know me well, when we're not friends yet, it comes across as phony, right? Or a better way to establish rapport would be to say, wow, I see that someone in the household is a cook. Dee, is that you? Well, then tell me, what's going to be important for you about the kitchen in your new home that we're going to find? Talk me through that a little bit. See, the best way to establish rapport is ask great questions about things that are important to them. Show them that you're listening and absorbing. And you know what? They're going to like you better. And if we don't make that attempt to connect, to be versatile, to establish that rapport, 50% of the deals you lose are because you, in some fashion, repelled that prospect, right? And that's a strong word, but it's kind of a neuropersuasion thing that you can easily repel someone just by being the polar opposite of how they prefer to communicate. So then solution-based, looking for solutions to problems versus beating the other side into submission, always the best approach, the collaborative approach. I was talking to an agent today that I coach here in Corona Del Mar. He was telling me about a horrible negotiation that started on a deal on Friday. He said, I had it listed for 3.4 million and the offer came in at 3 million. And he said, but that's okay because my seller knew we were a little high. I knew my seller was going to be negotiable, but he said that was actually extremely low. And he said, I had the worst weekend because the agent was so unpleasant. She kept sending me comps and data that weren't even relevant because he farms that area. He does like $200 million in business in Corona Del Mar. He knows that market, but she's beating him up with this data and that data, and you're out of line and your seller's out of line. She was so aggressive and horrible. And he said, you know what? My seller, if he had known that, he would have said, I'm not working with that buyer. He said, but I didn't tell him how aggressive, how rude. I just relayed the facts. And he said, ultimately, we got the deal together. But he said, I had to bite my tongue because I wanted to tell her to get lost. And he said, guess what? Any seller from now on, that agent comes along, I'm going to warn them about her. So that's not a way, right? And how hard is that? And how angry and aggressive do you have to be? So think collaborative. And we're going to actually really have to get better at this now more than ever before, right? Working together. So then logic versus emotion. A great negotiator realizes that people make decisions based on emotion, and then they scurry around looking for logical reasons to justify what they do. Now, even a rocket scientist, which is super analytical, even a rocket scientist makes a decision to purchase based on emotion. They're just going to need a heck of a lot more reasons organized on a spreadsheet, right, to justify why they do it. But don't be fooled thinking they're making their decisions logically. People just don't. Now, emotional intelligence, this is a subject that fascinates me. This has nothing to do with IQ. Okay, you could be super smart, but have very low emotional intelligence. Most of you probably have very high EQ because you're good with people. It's partially probably what attracted you to this business. I would recommend for all of you, if you haven't read it, get the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Easy to find. Just go to Barnes & Noble, Google it. It'll pop right up. Small book, easy to read. In it is a code for you to take your emotional intelligence assessment. Super easy questions, takes about 10 minutes, and it's going to give you back a score. And it's a score on how aware are you of your impact on the world around you, and a score on how intuitive are you in reading other people. Now, if you're 85 or above, awesome job. If you're below 85, you may want to take that assessment, and they will tell you book, chapter, and verse what to go read and what to work on to increase that score. Because, guys, have you ever met that person? Maybe it's somebody, at the airport or some situation you're in, and they are just oblivious of the world around them. They are rude. They are in everyone's way. They're not even paying attention or reading the room. Well, that would be a low EQ. So that's a good thing to work on. Social intelligence, that's more just sales versatility. It is human nature to think that people who don't operate the way we do are weird. That's human nature, right? But they're not weird. They're just different. I love the phrase chameleon-like. You know that little lizard, and you put them on your shirt and they start to change to match the environment. So work to be more chameleon-like. There's a great book, Cross-Cultural Selling for Dummies, that talks about adapting to different cultures. But what it explains in the book is that culture is not necessarily anything to do with race. It's the environment in which they were raised. So, for example, my husband is 100% Dutch. But you know what? He's never even been to Holland. He was born in America. He does not operate in the Dutch culture. He operates in the American culture. But if someone just moved here from Japan, they're going to operate in the Japanese culture. And if we don't attempt to meet them where they're at, there's going to be a break in rapport, right? So just think about people are like a puzzle, and you dump those pieces out and you put those pieces together. It makes the difficult people less annoying. I don't know why, just weirdly so, because when you think of it like, I'm not connecting with them. This isn't going well. Let me dump out the puzzle. Let me think about connecting these pieces. mirroring and matching their rate of speech. That's an easy one. Fast talkers think slow talkers are too slow. Slow talkers think fast talkers make them anxious. So I want to get in sync in every way I can. Acknowledge and validate. Look to find common ground. And most of all, stay calm, right? And try to keep everyone else calm. And do your best not to create sides in the negotiation. And that may mean shielding the other party from emotion, even when emotions run high. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're the buyer agent and the seller on the other side is not nice, and the agent is not nice. And your buyer requested some repairs that were rather small, but you felt they should be done based on the price they paid. And the agent comes back aggressively, no way, we hate you for asking, we're not going to do that, how dare you? And they just go crazy on you. Well, human nature. You want to go back to your buyer and say, these people are nuts. You know what they did? You know what they said? But guys, what good is that going to do, right? It's going to blow up the deal or make it a lot more difficult. And I think of us as we're like the human shield, not to mislead or lie to them, but to shelter them from the drama. So if I go back to the buyer and say, well, I presented our request to the seller and their agent, and the seller said that they're not willing to make those repairs. They feel they sold the home at a good price. The repairs are minor. So if you want to move forward with this purchase, then I've already had a handyman check. It's about $500. You would need to do those repairs on your own. Would you like to move forward with the purchase? See, keep it calm. And anytime you can, allow someone to save face. Well, I'm not taking an offer that low. And you work with them and you talk to them and you show them data. And then you say, Mr. Seller, now that you see the data, now that you realize the competitive environment we're up against, don't you think it makes sense to go ahead and accept the offer on the table today? See, now that you've seen the data, now that you understand the market, that's me allowing them to save face. And I also think that master negotiators will take a sword on behalf of their client. So if I were talking to Justin, I might say, I advised my seller not to do those requests for repairs because, quite frankly, they dropped the price for your buyer and they're really tight on funds. So I advised them not to do it. See, that allows the client to stay the good guy. So think language of agreement. How can I acknowledge? Even if it's, and acknowledge doesn't mean approval. Like, let's say they are really upset. I cannot believe my house hasn't sold. It's been 45 days on the market. I hear how frustrated you are. See, I'm acknowledging. And even in that moment, by labeling their emotion, it helps me de-escalate it just a little bit. Eliminate argumentative language. Yeah, I hear you, but, or look, listen, let me tell you. Get rid of that. Soften the tonality. Chris Voss says, if you speak with an aggressive tonality, you need to understand that's not going to serve you well in negotiation. He calls it the late night DJ voice. And if you ever hear him with his examples of negotiation, he's always in that zone, the late night DJ voice, and always coming from curiosity. I'm curious, what's stopping us from moving forward with this offer? Instead of, why aren't you taking it? This is a great offer, right? Big difference. So again, stay calm. If things get really heated, back away. you know, the other agent's going crazy, they're attacking you, just say, you know, I think we need to take a break. Let's take a moment. Why don't I call you back after lunch? Maybe you're hangry, right? Go eat a Snickers bar, but be patient because we never know. You know, I always try to tell myself, I don't know what's going on in their world. Even the nicest people turn into, you know, it's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde in the heat of a real estate deal. So I try to be calm and come back to the table. And then just to always be anticipating. What are the objections I might get? What are the 3 to 5 questions I should ask? How do I think they're going to respond to those questions? And what data or information do I need to have to make this negotiation successful? And Chris Voss says, you know, you kind of got to be prepared to take a punch and come back at it. So I have something for all of you, special present today. I think of it as my little gift to the real estate community who's done so much to support, you know, my business and my family's business over the years. I put together a masterclass. So there's multiple modules going deeper into these topics that we just skimmed over today. It is a course that I am going to start selling in a month or two, and I will sell it for $1,000. But I decided that from August through October, I just wanted to give it away because I want to help you all succeed. And I totally bless you to go share it with your broker, with anybody in your world, because we all have to skill up and get better together, right? So all you have to do, if you want to be part of it, you scan that QR code on the screen. There's not a single string attached to this at all. And these are pre-recorded sessions. That way it makes it easy for you to watch it at your own pace, at your own speed. And you'll have 45 days access. Let's see, I think I've got it here. It's 8 weeks of sessions. So you have 8 weeks to watch them, plus an additional 45 days access into the learning management portal in case you had a vacation or something planned. And we've got a couple of great tools and resources attached. So don't be afraid to scan that code. There's no strings attached, not a penny to pay for, just awesome information. I hope you love it. I hope you get some deals, and then you'll have some money to come to us and we'll coach you to be even better. All right, Justin, I know our time is up and we went fast, but the course is going to give them so much more. It'll be the gift that keeps on giving.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions for Debbie? Just want to throw that real quick.
And by the way, there is a module in here on the emotional intelligence. There is a module on sales versatility and identifying someone's DISC assessment, handling tough, difficult customers. So we really go deep into those 8 modules, and I think you'll really like them.
Awesome.
All right,
We
guys.
really appreciate that. Thank you so
You're
much, Debbie.
welcome. Have a great
Hey,
day.
Justin.
You too. Thank you. Hey guys, real quick,
Bye-bye.
I'm going to throw in the chat box the registration link for our next class. We don't have one next week. However, we still have 4 this month. So we're jam-packed with a bunch of sessions. Next week, we are talking about how to leverage social media with detailed examples, and also how to get lead generation in your social media practices. We have a guest speaker. Her name is Kathy Gill. She's out of the Las Vegas market. She has mastered this, so I wanted to bring her on to share what she's found success in that, so you guys can rinse and repeat. So go to click that link, register everyone on the call. You don't want to miss that. That's going to be the 16th, I believe. Let me double check. Yes, Tia saying yes, I believe it. It's 16th. So, and then we have a couple more for the rest of the month as well. But I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you in the next training. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks so much, Justin. It's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Bye.